Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Voice. I'm Aishwarya Chauhan.
And I'm Anu Sharma. Thanks for tuning in.
Today, we are diving into a topic that's essential for every organization: internal communications. In any workplace, employees are not just part of the team, they are the most authentic brand ambassadors.
That's especially true for not for profit organizations where the mission is about making an impact in the community. Strong internal communications can be the backbone of driving that purpose and elevating community impact. And to help us explore this further, we're excited to have with us Wemimo Onikan. Wemimo leads internal communications at Nutrition International.
With over 13 years of experience across the nonprofit, public, and private sectors, Wemimo's work focuses on creating strategic communications that elevate the organization's mission and amplify employee engagement. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again, Wemimo. Let's dive into the questions here. Let's start by talking about your journey in the not for profit sector. From your experience, how does effective internal communication shape an organization's ability to create social impact?
Thanks, Anu, for that question. So let me think back a little bit. Now, I've been working in this space for quite a long time. So at this point, it's over 13 years of experience. And I would say that a larger part of my work has been with nonprofit organizations. I've worked with other sectors. The biggest part is nonprofit. So worked on projects like girls' education, adolescent sexual and reproductive health, maternal and child health, nutrition, and so much more. And one of the things that's in all is, while these organizations are primarily dedicated to social impact programs, I'd also work with other organizations in sectors like banking, entertainment, healthcare, and more. One of the things I find constantly is the bigger goal of the organization varies, really. But regardless of what the goal is, regardless of the things we're trying to achieve as an organization, one thing that employees want to see is how their work is making a difference. Beyond just I'm getting a paycheck every month, beyond just I'm earning some money for myself, support my family. How is my work making a difference in the world? And how is my work making a difference in the lives of other people? When we break that down a little bit, regardless of the sector, effective internal comms is very important for any organization if they want to make meaningful change, if they're looking at making meaningful social impacts. Because one of the things it does is that it brings our teams together around a shared purpose. It enhances a sense of accountability across the team. It ensures that everybody understands that their work is beyond just I work in finance or I work in procurement or I work in the marketing team or regardless of the team. It makes you get the sense that I'm doing something beyond just simply hitting the bottom line. Right. And one example that comes to mind right now is when an organization, for instance, decides to work on a critical global issue like, let's say, public health, right, or education, or even nutrition, which is where I work right now. It requires much more than just a handful of we implement a program in a certain community, or we're contributing, we're giving a certain percentage to support this kind of work to say provide pipe-borne water in a certain community or things like that. It needs the full commitment and alignment of everybody in the organization beyond just the organization itself pumping in money into that space, into that social impact project or anything like that. So things like making sure that your employees are hearing back about the effort you're making makes a lot of difference. Right. So things like newsletters, for example, you want to be able to share stories about how the work that you're doing is changing lives, is making a difference. You want to provide opportunities for example, learning sessions. In the nonprofit space where I work, for example, the project teams go into the communities, are doing a lot of great work. If the people in the, let's say, corporate services team, the admin, the finance guys, the procurement, if people in other different teams who are not necessarily doing direct implementation with you, if they don't understand the bigger picture, if they don't understand the challenges you face when you go into the communities, if they don't understand how the work that they are contributing to is actually making a difference, then it becomes a struggle. So using internal communication tools, like I said, like newsletters, like learning sessions, like just having opportunities to share information about what's going on, using your intranet to provide information about the things you're doing and how you're making a difference goes a very, very long way. So beyond just the big picture thing that you're doing as an organization, you want to make sure you're carrying your employees along while you're doing that.
Thank you, Wemimo. I completely agree with you. It's extremely important because your employees are also your audience. And for them to understand the impact that you're bringing into the broader community, I think that's what will make them more involved. And that's how it'll show in the entire ecosystem. And they're your true brand ambassadors. So thank you for that response.
That was amazing. I have worked at a couple of nonprofit organizations, and I completely agree with you when you say that building a sense of community within the organization is extremely crucial. So, I also wanted to explore what are some of the key strategies you found most effective in fostering engagement and a sense of belonging within the team.
Thank you, Shwarya. Community, that's a big thing, especially in this day and age. That's such a big thing with organizations. You want to come to work and feel like you enjoy coming to work. Okay. You want to come to work and feel like you may not exactly love the people you work with, but at least you enjoy the work. You feel a sense of connection to the people you work with. There's mutual respect and things like that. So building a sense of community within an organization is very important, and that's an important part of strengthening employee engagement, and belonging within the organization. And so one of the things that I have found to be super helpful is when you make sure that you're pushing out clear and transparent communication at every point in time, and that should be a big part of the internal communication strategy, regardless of the team that the internal communications team sits in. I use that carefully because sometimes in internal comms, you find that it's a one-man office where, there's one person running it. Sometimes it's, you have a small team that could be sitting with the HR team. Sometimes they're sitting with marketing. But regardless of where in the organization the internal communications team is seated, you want to ensure that there's transparent communication going on. You want to ensure that increasing employee engagement and creating a sense of belonging is a huge part of your strategy. Okay. And simple tactics you could use, just regular communication tactics, just ensuring that people are kept abreast of what's going on. So creating regular touch points with newsletters, for example, right? Having online channels. So my organization, for instance, we're a Microsoft shop. We use Microsoft for like literally everything, right? So it could be things like Teams, if that's your thing as an organization, or Slack, if that's your thing, or any other platform at all. But creating online channels where people can come online and engage, ensuring things like regular team meetings are happening. Things like town halls, making sure that town halls are happening. An opportunity, and town halls are fantastic because then it's an opportunity to engage with leadership, to hear about the vision of the organization, where the organization is headed, provides a platform to engage with leadership, ask questions and get responses, and helps you understand the overall picture of where the organization is going with future plans. Another thing that I have found to be very helpful to create a sense of belonging, and that's a great internal communication tool for any team to explore is regular storytelling, right? And these can be whether internally or externally, depending on how you want to strategically use this. But I find that when you celebrate employees through storytelling, right, talk about the great work that they're doing, your organization is doing amazing, right? You feel like you're making a difference in the world, whether you're in whatever sector, whether it's a profit-making sector or nonprofit. But when you celebrate the faces behind the work, it just helps create a sense of belonging. It helps people feel like my work is worth it. They see themselves and they're excited about the work they do. They're excited to share about the stories and, just tell people that they are part of something big, right? So things like internal storytelling, it could be external on your social media platforms, for instance. That's also another way to engage. And interestingly, sometimes we think these things are small. It's interesting how it just creates a sense of connection and bonding and representation for people. People see someone that looks like them, that sounds like them, that has a similar background to them, and they're reading those people's stories. It's such a powerful thing. Another thing also is, some organizations, for instance, are big on affinity groups, right? Like employee resource groups. So you could decide to host, a channel on Teams or Slack or wherever else. Or in some cases, even do like in-person meetings. But, cultural groups, some groups are like working parents, breastfeeding moms, things like young professionals, Gen Zs in the organization, whatever the dynamic of the organization might be. I find creating employee resource groups are also great tools to help people feel a sense of connection, belonging. Sometimes it could even be things like creating a channel for pets, right? People who love pets or people who like to go gymming, and just creating this platform where people can connect and engage goes a long way to create some sense of connection and belonging in the organization. Lastly, I would add also that onboarding. Onboarding is it's a very big part. Sometimes we kind of just feel like, well, that sits with HR. It's not internal comms business. The HR team will figure it all out. But I find that it's important that the HR team and internal comms are working hand in hand. And new hires need to come into the organization. And from day one, they feel a sense of connection to the organization. Even if it means an email to the organization letting people know, hey, we have a new team member, and everybody's excited and is welcoming you, or something that introduces you, let's say, a couple questions, and then you're included in the newsletter as a new team member, or you're attached to a body. That's one thing that we found very helpful at my organization, creating the buddy system where you're not just left alone when you join, you're attached to somebody, and that person kind of walks you through and helps you. So all of these things kind of work together to make sure that you're in an organization and you don't feel alone. Right? Like I said, you may not love all the people you work with, but at least while you're there, for the couple years you're there, you want to go to work every day excited about the work you do and the impact that you're making.
Like how we have the outreach to the employees through newsletters and those town halls. I was wondering if there are tools how employees can have their voices heard. What are the platforms where employees can get their voices heard? So, for example, newsletters and town halls are amazing ways for the leadership, for the organization to get their message across to the employees. Now, what are the ways for the employees to get their message across to the leadership, to the organization, and have their voices heard?
Thank you, Anna. That's a great question. One of the things I find is that sometimes I work with organizations and we feel like, well, the leaders are just doing their thing, especially in organizations that are spread geographically across different parts of the world. There can be a sense of detachment from leadership. So leadership is, let's say the leadership is based at the headquarters in whatever country of the world they are in. And then you have employees in other parts of the organization who are just in their different spaces. Some are regular workers, some are deskless workers who don't have access to computers and emails and are working in the field. And sometimes it's that detachment there, and people just feel like leaders are doing their thing, and as far as I get paid, I'm fine. But it's important for us as employees to know that leaders actually want to hear from you, right? Nobody knows it all, and so providing platforms like you mentioned, town halls. So when a town hall is called for, there's a town hall happening, that's a perfect opportunity for you to ask your leaders questions. That's a perfect opportunity for you to be a part of that process. When surveys are sent out, you want to make sure that you are contributing to those surveys, you're sharing your thoughts. And one of the things I found to be helpful is even as one who's leading in internal communications in my organizations, it's interesting. People prefer anonymous surveys to surveys where their names will be seen, because then they feel more comfortable to actually speak up about the things that are burning in their hearts. And that's very important. So you have a town hall, you have surveys every now and then, surveys about different things. What do you think we should include as a part of XYZ program? What we're thinking of taking this decision. What do you think leadership should put into consideration? When some of these surveys come out, those are perfect opportunities for you to actually make your voices heard. And I must say also that sometimes the surveys are not anonymous, and it takes a bit of boldness and confidence to actually say, you know what, I really don't care if they see my name, but I think I'll just say what I've got to say. So I think as far as you're saying it respectfully, you should be good, even if they saw your name or not, it's fine. So make sure that as an employee, it's important that we utilize such platforms, just airing our thoughts when we have the chance to. And we're certain leaders, sometimes they will listen, sometimes they won't, but air your concerns, air it fast, right? And you never know. It may just be the next breakthrough idea that the organization would really appreciate, that would take the organization forward.
I think Wemimo very rightly covered the leadership part. So I think that's a very great segue onto the next part.
I love how you highlighted the role of leadership in terms of internal communications, be it around employee engagement or appreciation, or in terms of building a connection within the organization. Definitely, leadership plays a very significant role in building that kind of sense of belonging for the employees. So let's jump on to the next question. What advice do you have for leaders who want to create such transparent communication and also build trust across their teams?
Leadership. I find that leadership is a very sensitive role. And sometimes people feel like, oh, well, I'm not a leader. The people who are leaders are like the people in C-suite, and it's them high up there, and it has nothing to do with me. But really, leadership is beyond a position, regardless of where you are across your organization. But let's say, for the purpose of this conversation, let's say that the leaders we're referring to here are those with titles, right? C-suite leaders, directors, managers, etc. I find that one approach I would recommend is be authentic and vulnerable. And I say that because I've worked with several leaders over the course of my career. And I find that sometimes with leadership places you at such a pedestal that people look up to you, people expect you to have all the answers, people expect you to know it all, people expect that you should not make mistakes. That's not always true. And so in leadership, I think it's totally fine when as leaders we come out honestly, about decisions we're making. Sometimes we may not have it all figured out yet, which is why I said, for instance, leaders could reach out and say, give us your thoughts. We're about to make so and so decision. We would love to get inputs from employees. So as leaders, we should be open to admitting that we don't have it all figured out. We don't know everything. We should be willing and open to being vulnerable and listen to other people's feedback and be open to taking them. Because it's also, like I said, in leadership, you could just be in this bubble of your own where you feel like, well, I have to put up a certain look and create a certain font, but you need to let your people know that they can trust you. You need to let your people know that you're human too. And one of the things I found is during the pandemic, this happened quite a bit, right? Prior to the pandemic, prior to COVID-19, it was always like the leaders knew it all, everything was perfect. But all of a sudden, the world literally broke down. And we just realized that, okay, now leaders, there are lots of questions coming in and leaders don't have all the answers. And so when we open up and say, hey, we're human just like you. I have kids just like you. I have struggles just like you. We don't have all the answers. Please let us know if you think we can implement a certain thing, or if you think we can adopt certain tactics. We'll be glad to take them on. So it's important for us as leaders to take that and work with that. Another thing also for leaders is to let people know the why behind decisions. I know sometimes it can be tricky and we're making high-level decisions and we're not able to provide employees with all the details, and that's fine. But as much as we can provide, as much as we can make available, let people know the reasoning behind decisions. Let people know why certain changes are happening, how it might impact them. I think it's very important for people to know that. And also involve team members in decision making. As leaders, let's not make decisions be all about, we're the C-suite. We know we're the ones who make the decisions here. But as much as possible, you want people to be involved in that process.
It's amazing how you kind of talked about the opportunities and challenges of the leadership, because we always look up to them, but we never think about the challenges that they face while navigating internal communication, especially for employees. And, because there is so much employees coming and going into an organization, it's very difficult for them to kind of maintain that consistent communication all the time.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And maybe just to add, Ashura, that to your point about it's sometimes it's difficult to maintain consistent communication. Sometimes leaders are just exhausted and they're like, I'm not in the mood to write updates to staff and whatever that might look like, whether it's writing updates or having regular video calls with your employees or whatever tactic that, just find a way to ensure that you have regular touch points with your employees. We can't figure it all out. And it's important that employees feel a sense of connection to you as a leader. They see you as you're just like me. They see a sense of representation one of the things that I found, in one of the organizations that works with, the CEO would regularly write to leaders, would and not just to the, other senior leaders would write to the organization. Employees would reach out regularly and say, I want to hear, like, when next is the CEO going to write to us? Because they want to hear from the CEO. It gives a sense of stability. It gives a sense of, I know what's going on, right? I'm not just doing my thing and leadership are doing their thing. We're all in this together. So that's very important to note.
I love that we're all in this together and we're all humans at the end of the day. So it's the right thing is to keep it raw, keep it authentic, like you rightly said, Wemimo. So then when we're having this internal communications from all sides, we want to know, how do you measure the success of internal communications, particularly when it comes to building community and driving employee engagement?
Yeah, a measurement is big. As a matter of fact, for every internal communications leader, specialist, whatever your designation may be, checking metrics is a big deal. Gone are the days when, you just put out content to staff, put out something on the intranet, and put out something on, via the newsletter, or just send out emails and just assume, oh, well, we sent it out and that's it. We need to regularly check the back end. Are people actually reading these things, right? Are people reading them? How long are they spending reading them? What time of the day are they reading the most? What platforms are they reading the most on? If you have, depending on the platforms you subscribe on, you subscribe to provide service, whether it's your internal newsletter platform or your intranet platform, etc. You want to ensure, one of the big things you want to check is your analytics behind. What kind of analytics do they provide? Do they go into the nitty-gritty details? Okay, so things like your open rate for your newsletters, you want to check that. You want to check how long they're reading it for. You want to check, what platforms they're reading on. Are they reading more from their laptops? Are they reading more from their mobile phones? When you get some of this data, it helps you to make adjustments to your strategies as you go along, right? You also want to be able to check, what teams are opening your content and reading them versus what teams are not, and that helps you a great deal as well. So things like attendance as well. Where we talked about town halls the other time. People come to town halls, but if the town hall, let's say you had a town hall, say 6 months ago, the next town hall, you realize that the people that came at the last town hall were much more than the people that came at the most recent town hall. By then it starts to make you have questions. Okay, so what's going on? What's the problem? Is it that, for example, the timing is not convenient for people? Is it that format? You want to find out what exactly are people thinking. For example, let's say during the town hall, leaders spoke, shared updates, send a post-town hall survey to check on that and see. And you want to be able to see all of the data. So all of these things, surveys, your metrics are very important. Another thing I found to be helpful with just checking metrics around community and driving engagement is sentiments, as well as qualitative anecdotes. Sometimes the numbers, I wouldn't even say sometimes, a lot of times the numbers are great. Yeah, the numbers tell you things that you probably wouldn't have known if you didn't see the analytics. But it's also powerful when you get qualitative words from people, right? People telling you specifics around, for instance, you had a wellness session last month, and ever since you had that wellness session, someone writes to you and says, thank you so much for that wellness session. Ever since we had that session, I've started to exercise more. I've started to eat better. Now I feel more energetic when I come into the office. Now that is powerful. Okay, that's not something you get from numbers. Okay, so even while you're getting your quantitative data from the metrics, the surveys, etc., you also want to balance that with qualitative anecdotes from people, stories, sentiments on how people are feeling. Sometimes you could just include something to say, give us a star, like how you feeling, or a thumbs up or thumbs down. Yeah, just little things like that just help you get a sense of how people are feeling, and then you can alter or tweak your internal communication strategy based on what you're hearing.
Definitely, like you said, feedback and social listening are definitely one of building effective internal communication strategies. And that could tell you a lot about the kind of communication people are happy to receive, what they're feeling about it. So yeah, definitely that is something that all leadership should consider spending money on, collecting data and using it to be able to effectively communicate with their primary audiences, which is the employees. For sure. Thank you so much, Wemimo. Your insights highlight how internal communication isn't just about sending messages, but also about creating an engaged, connected, and purpose driven environment for the employees. It's amazing to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
But before we wrap up, let's do a quick rapid fire round. Ready? What's
Sure.
one book, podcast, or whatcast that has helped you become a better communicator?
A few, actually. So I'm quite big on podcasts and audiobooks. Yeah, this
Love
phase
that.
of my life, this is the phase of life where you're balancing family, work, just everything else with you. So one of my favorites is Candid Comms podcast. It's hosted by Rachel Miller. Another one is Engaging Internal Comms with Craig Smith. Great podcast. If you're big on internal comms, you should go listen to that. And then there's another one by the UK Institute for Internal Communications. It's called The Future of Internal Communications podcast. Great one. And then finally, I said I'm great. I'm great. I love listening to audiobooks. This book, Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. I didn't read the hard copy. I just did the audiobook, but great book. It has improved my insights around being vulnerable and being courageous as a leader, and just helped my leadership and communication overall. So if you're a leader, you're an internal comms professional, you're looking for something to binge on, I would highly recommend those.
Amazing. Thanks a lot. We're going to share links of all of these awesome recommendations with our podcast and also in the newsletter that goes out from IBC Ottawa. Thank you. And what's one tip for new or aspiring communicators?
For everyone who's new in the communication space, I find that sometimes people you're new in a space, you get a new job, and the first thing you're thinking about is, how much am I going to earn? How much does that job pay me? And am I willing to take on this job or not? If you're new in this space, I would say focus on building skills and expertise first, and don't place emphasis on a salary or a title. And I say that because from experience, I've found that over the years, when you prioritize skills development, it helps you to build a solid foundation. And you build so many skills in different areas. Yeah, you become vast and knowledgeable in different things, such that by the time you grow in your career, you get to a point where you're so good at what you do, you've built a track record with what you do. And to be honest, the money will come later. So in a nutshell, chase the experience, not the money, if you're pretty new in the space, and the money will come later.
I just want to say that that's very similar to something that I had gotten from one of my mentors early in my career, that focus on becoming better every day, focus on your hard work and just learning, and the money will follow. So, and that has happened and that is happening. So I completely agree with you, Wemimo. Thank you once again, Wemimo. This was a great conversation and we are sure our listeners have gained a lot from your experiences. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.